Hi everyone. I welcome you to yet another exciting episode on biblical perspectives in stewardship. In this program, in this episode, I'm going to discuss with you 5 difficult questions. We call them difficult questions because they run the world. We are what we are, the way we behave, because of these 5 difficult questions. What are these difficult questions? And why are they difficult questions? Why should we refer to them as being difficult? Number 1, we just want to look at the question, who am I? Who am I? That's a difficult question. And you're asking, but what do you mean? Is that a difficult question? And yes, it is a very difficult question. We will discuss that. The second question we want to look at today is the question, where am I from? You want to know where you come from. We're talking about origins here. We're talking about origins. The first question, we're talking about identity. And we're talking about origins in the second question. And the third question, we will be discussing, why am I here in the first place? And so we're talking about, the purpose for your existence. In the fourth question, we are asking ourselves the question, what can I do? We're talking about potential. What is it that you can do now that you know you are here, now that you know where you come from and who you are? And so you can now therefore know what you can do. And the last question, very important, of course, we will be discussing, where am I going? That's the question of destiny. Now, let's begin with the first question that says, who am I? Very difficult question indeed, because many theologians and philosophers and scholars have wondered on giving the identity to mankind, especially even yourself. Have you ever sat down to ask yourself who you are? Sometimes has it ever baffled you that people say one thing about you and you also think another thing about yourself? And sometimes you wonder, am I that kind of a person people say I am? Or am I the person that I think I am? Or probably I am the person that people say I am. So this is one of the most difficult questions. And difficult as it may be, it is also easy. How? It's easy in the sense that you did not create yourself. You need to know who created you, who is God himself. And he will give you an identity. Genesis chapter 1. Verse 26, the Bible says, let us make man in our own image after our own likeness. It simply means, who are you? You are a steward of God, given the responsibility to take care of the affairs of God on earth. Who you are is not who you think you are. Who you are is not who people say you are. Who you are is not who sometimes you think you are. Imagine for a second that sometimes if you perform well, people are going to say you are a good person and a nice performer. Sometimes if you perform badly, people would define you differently. And failure to identify who you are, it simply means you allow everybody else to define you. And it's so amazing. Have you ever wondered that we put on clothes that are synonymous with certain names because we want to identify with them? We put on Paul Smith, and we know that I am not Paul Smith. So why am I putting on Paul Smith? It's because I want to identify with Paul Smith. And so there is an identity crisis. Unfortunately, this identity crisis goes on even up to when you are old in life. You still find you can't know who you are. And so here is an answer that I can share with you at this moment. If you want to know who you are, you need to consult who created you, and that's God himself. And he will tell you, you are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. Regardless of your looks, the shape, and what you do, you are not defined by your education. You're not defined by things you own. You're not defined by the car you drive. Who you are is not how you smell. Who you are is not how you dress. Who you are is beyond all these external things. In fact, you add value to clothes. You add value to cars. You add value to a lot of things that do not define you. Don't allow anybody else to define you. Go back to God. He will give you your real identity. And our real identity is we are sons and daughters of the King. We are royalty. Let's come to the second question. Where do I come from? The first and the second question seem to be almost identical, but they are different. We're talking about origins. In a world and time where there's evolution and people are talking about so many things, different religions believe different things about origins. But you, my friend, and myself, we have to go back to God's words. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said to themselves, let us create man in our own image. Very important that we know we are not a product of mistake or chance, but we are a product of God's design. And He created us. We came from the hands of God. And guess what? Knowing where you come from, it will also help you answer the following question. We come from the hands of a great designer. We come from the hands of the master porter. And so when we are broken at some point, we can always go back to Him and then He's going to fix us. The third question is, why am I here? Now that you know where you come from, now that you know who you are, you need to know, why are you here? These are very important questions because why you are here gives you the purpose for your existence. It's so alarming and it's so, it's a sorry sight to see most people living purposeless lives. Most people doing this and that. They can't find meaning to life. On top of that, as a matter of fact, you find there are a lot of people who will go about teaching people that life has no meaning, and they do find meaning in meaningless of life. They go around teaching the world about the meaningless of life. But life has a meaning because God gives you the purpose before He creates you. Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 again. Bible says, let us create man in our own image after our own likeness and let them have dominion. Very important. So before you and I were created, the Godhead had a meeting in which they were discussing you, and they had a blueprint in which they are going to produce you and I. And before they can produce you and I, notice and listen to the language of God. He says, let us create man in our own image so that he may do A, B, C, D. He must have dominion. He's going to take care of things in the garden. He's going to take care of business. So the functionality or purpose actually precedes your creation. Your purpose determines what God creates. So your purpose came in before you were born. So if you want to know what your purpose is in life, you need to consult the one who created you. Why was I created? Why am I here? And what am I doing on planet Earth? And so here's how purpose goes, by. If you live life without a purpose, you can easily be frustrated. You commit suicide. Why? You have no reason to live. But if you live with a purpose in life, you will know that God created you for something bigger than just yourself. And here is how we define purpose and find purpose in life. Because one of the worst things to do in life, one of the most tragic things in life, is to live life without a purpose. Having passed through life, and it doesn't matter how old you have lived. Maybe you could have lived 90 years. By the way, in the Bible we find a man who lived the longest. His name is Methuselah. And the only thing we hear about the guy is that he lived and he died. Only two things. Why? There was no purpose. And so what are we saying? Don't pray for many years in your life to come. Don't want to live longer. What you need to pray for is for God to direct you to your purpose. What is your purpose? Let's come to number 4. Number 4, we are talking about what can I do? Now that you know your purpose, now that you know where you come from, now that you know your identity, who you are, you just want to know what can you do now that you are here on earth? You have a purpose. And your purpose is your driving force in this life, to do extraordinary things because you are fired up and within you, you know you need to leave a mark on planet Earth. So what can you do? What you can do is highly dependent on who you are. Here's my example. If you are a bird, you can fly. Why? Because you're a bird. Simple. If you are a fish, you can swim. Why? Because you are a fish. So failure to identify who you are then makes it, impossible for you to know what you can do. So here's a simple thing. When you are a chicken, or maybe let's go back to our example. When you are a bird that is trying to swim, you're going to suffocate and die. When you are a fish that is trying to fly, you're really going to suffocate and you're not going to manage to fly. And this is the biggest mistake most people make, because they want to fly because they see others flying. They haven't asked themselves who they are. Maybe they are fish and they're supposed to swim and not fly. So when you know what you can do, Genesis chapter 1, again, verse 27 and 28, the Bible says, and God blessed them, and he said, let them be fruitful and multiply. And notice that he talks about being fruitful and increase in number. He doesn't talk about being seedful. Why? It's because he has already planted the seed within them. And so all they need to do is to discover, what seed do I have? And when you know what seed you have, it's very easy for you to do the very thing that makes you, so excited. Sometimes I'm so worried when I see people, running away from their jobs when they knock off exactly it's 16 hours. People, it's as if they are being chased from their offices. Why? They are doing things that they don't like. They're doing things that they are not called to do. They don't know why they are here and why they are doing what they are doing. Let's come to the final thing. Here's how the story ends about the 5 most difficult questions. It ends in accountability. If God has given you an identity, if God has created you, if God has given you a purpose, if God has given you potential to grow yourself and do things, then he will require an accountability. In stewardship, all the parables in stewardship will end in accountability. You must give a report. How did you use your time, the most treasured gift? How did you use your talents? How did you use your potential? Some of us will be judged by not the things that we owned, but the things we should have owned. Here's an example. Maybe you are driving a Benz, but maybe God wanted you to fly and have your private jet, but you were satisfied at that level. So God is going to judge you, not based on the fact that you bought a Benz, but based on the fact that you had more potential than what you were excited about. So whatever it is that we do on planet Earth, we'll surely have to give, an account for these things. Because why? At one point or the other, the Bible tells us that Jesus Christ is going to come the second time, and everybody will give an account how they lived their lives. And this is going to be big. Our destination at the end of the story is that we're going to be taken to heaven. And heaven really is not a destination, but heaven is a person. Heaven is Jesus Christ. The presence of Jesus makes heaven a heaven itself. So how does Jesus take us? Here's a simple scenario. For instance, if you have, wasted your life on planet Earth, you haven't used your talents, do you want to also waste eternity? That's quite unfair. And so this is the more reason why, if it means working very hard, you need to work hard. Why? Because you know who you are. You're not defined by people. You know why you are here. You have a purpose for your life. You know what you can do because you know your ability and how you can grow that ability. Why? Because there's judgment there. God is going to account for that beauty that you have. How many people did you draw to Christ? Or how many people did you expel from the kingdom? For that talent, that good speaking, and all those things, there'll come a time when God will require an account. And so I'd like to aid you as we contemplate on these 5 difficult questions. Ask yourself and have a time with yourself. Ask yourself, who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? What can I do? And where am I going? Whether we like it or not, we need to know where we're going. Our life cannot just end in the grave. Our life has meaning, and God will resurrect us, and we must go somewhere and continue. So God bless you. Let's meet in another episode.